All right, YouTube. So, as predicted, there is something that's happening in Portland that's very similar to Charlottesville, with right-wingers basically setting up a rally there, and then the folks from Antifa showing up to counter-protest. And the MO, I guess, is the same. So basically, the Antifa folks are there with their mouths covered or their faces covered, with plenty of weapons to brandish. And you know, it's amazing because when I'm watching this footage from CBS News, they fail to mention that Antifa is technically a terrorist organization, and and they don't ever talk about like the past incidents with Antifa. And the most famous one, in my opinion, is the one where the guy is basically hiding in the crowd, and then he comes out of nowhere with a bike lock and smashes that poor guy's head. Thank God the guy lived. And, basically 4chan used their weaponized autism to find him, and and they doxed his ass, and for good reason. He was a criminal, and but that's kind of like your run-of-the-mill Antifa member, and they're such hypocrites because basically what they're advocating for is, they basically call themselves anti-fascist, but they're essentially exercising fascism, in the most blatant form too, because they don't even talk. They don't even speak to you. They just stand there with their bandanas over their mouth and their faces covered, usually wearing sunglasses, and they just stare at you. These folks cannot be reasoned with. And, the CBS broadcast was basically trying to imply that something's going to happen. So, this is the reason why they're covering it. This is the reason why this was in YouTube news trending. It's basically going to be another Charlottesville incident all over again. And then the media is going to react by basically saying that, the alt-righters were essentially the ones that started the violence, and then the Antifa was basically just defending themselves. They're going to say that again, and they're going to pull that whole thing about Heather Heyer. And then that's the even more gross part about this, is that they completely ignore the fact that the gentleman who was driving the car that unfortunately killed Heather Heyer and injured many others, but still, they fail to mention that that gentleman was basically being clubbed, and he was getting in his car to drive away, and then he killed Heather Heyer in the process. Very sad, and that's basically how Charlottesville gained national attention. And then obviously the media also reacts by telling Trump, "Oh, you said both sides. You can't say both sides. We're on many sides." Excuse me. And they always do this bullshit. It's excuse me. It's the same song and dance, essentially, because they just want to paint Trump as if he's like a white supremacist or neo-Nazi. And he does everything, and he has done everything in his power to basically demonstrate that he's not a neo-Nazi or a white supremacist or anything like that. He basically is a guy from Manhattan. Okay, there's a lot of different ethnic groups in Manhattan. There's probably a lot of LGBT folks in Manhattan. So he's a very socially liberal guy. I do not really I don't see the evidence pointing anywhere. I don't see any evidence that points to him being racist, essentially. I'm sure he's probably had a racist thought in his life like everybody else. Let's not get on our high horse here, because that's what people tend to do when they're looking at Trump. Essentially Trump is in my opinion, he's kind of he's like a personification of, or the embodiment of what every American wants to be, essentially. They want to be rich, they want to be famous, but they also want to be able to say the wildest shit and get away with it, because, essentially that's how his supporters are, including myself. He can say whatever the fuck he wants, because he actually puts thoughts behind his words, believe it or not. Very, very, there's a lot of strategy behind his talking, I think, But anyways, it was really smart of him to handle it, on many sides. And, he obviously mentions Antifa too. But I think he needs to come out a little harder. I think he needs to come out a little harder and basically say, look, Antifa was the group that started the violence. They were the ones who started the fire, essentially. And I think that, his approval rating will actually go up because, he's basically speaking, what most Americans are thinking. Most Americans don't. My guess is that most Americans don't approve of the idea of Antifa. Not even that. Like, they don't even care about the idea of Antifa. It's just how Antifa operates. Because if Antifa was really, if they lived up to their namesake, they would not commit any kind of violence at all. No. They're essentially fascists. They have been fascists for a long time. And I don't think anything's going to change, folks. I mean, the media really seems to kiss Antifa's ass wherever they go, because, in their minds, they're like the pussy hat folks. I mean, they're the resistance. They're the impeached Drumpf crowd, And I just think, the media is going to have a field day with this fucking protest. I mean, they're going to find a way to try and demonize Trump and his supporters as well, because I'll tell you what, this was like maybe a few months after I was kind of fully supporting Trump, but I was very insecure about my support for Trump because of my own town. I mean, that's not their fault. That's my fault for not having a lot of self-esteem in that context. But what happened is that even Fox News was kind of echoing the same sentiment about Trump being like a racist. Like, I think Harris Faulkner came out and said, like, you handled this completely wrong, like in a monologue form, that is. But what I think, though, is that, or what I felt at the time, was that I felt like, wow, am I a white supremacist because I support this guy? And then I had to remind myself that I'm like a quarter Greek and a quarter German, so I'm half white, essentially. And I don't know. I'm not really too disappointed at that either. I mean, I don't care if I'm 100% white or 100% Caucasian or wherever. And that's the thing. There's like so many subgroups too. Like, you just can't call them white. I mean, you can call them whatever the fuck you want, but technically they're not all white people. I mean, some of them are Russian, some of them are German, Greek. I'm German and Greek myself, and in terms of their heritage, very different histories. Anyways, that was a pretty good take. I'm going to end on that. So listen, guys, there's a lot of news to cover tonight. I mean, I do not know what the aftermath of this protest will be, but I can guarantee you the reason why they're covering it right now is because they know something's about to go down. Soros has probably ordered his little minions in the Antifa to basically strike first. And he says, no, I got your back. Basically, I'm going to bribe the media, and then they're going to say that, alt-righter bullshit has started. That's what they're going to do, honestly. That's just my prediction. I hope you guys like the new channel name. I just thought it was appropriate because of the picture I took at that Seventh-day Adventist church down the street from me. So, yeah, more news to come. God bless, guys. I'll see you later.